Good morning. My name is Renske Pieterse and I'm going to go through English First Additional Language, one of the aspects of paper 1, which is the comprehension test. Okay, we're going to discuss a little bit about what the introduction is about, the text structure, 3 levels of reading, and how to use reading strategies in order to understand what you are reading. And then we'll discuss the type of questions in the question paper. Reading is one of the most important aspects that you need for all your subjects. If you read here, you cannot just read, but you must read with understanding. That is a life skill. Think about your subjects like life sciences, economics, history. You always have a passage that you have to read and you have to make understanding of it. And we know it's difficult for you. But if you follow these skills and these steps, you will see that it becomes much easier. So we're going to discuss how should you read a passage and then how to use reading strategies in order to make sense of what you are reading. You get different text structures. The different text structures will display the information in a different way to you. We get descriptive, we get the chronological order, we get compare and contrast, cause and effect, and problem and solution. We are going to unpack these text structures now in the following slides. First of all, a descriptive text. Look at the little icon here at the bottom. See, it's all little dots. So that tells you it is something that contains a lot of description. You will get examples like, for example, such as, you get adjectives. The text will describe the characteristics of something. Let's bring it back to COVID-19. If you read something about COVID-19 and it's a descriptive text, it will say, COVID-19 is like a flu, but it is worse. And it will give you the adjectives, it spreads quickly, etc. So do you understand now what the descriptive is? Now we come to chronological order. Now, chronological order is something that you will really use in a subject like history. The text will describe a sequence of events or list certain steps. So you'll get something like first, and then this happened, before this, something else happened. Let's bring it back to COVID again. What happened first? There was an outbreak of COVID-19 in China. Then it rapidly spread, and then the whole country was in lockdown, or the whole world was in lockdown because of this. Before COVID, that's the one word you'll use, before COVID, people flew all over the place, but after COVID-19, it has stopped, and people had to take different decisions on how to address the world. If we go to compare and contrast, look at compare and contrast. Here you have your little circle with the middle where you have similarities. And on the sides you have your contrast, your differences. So your clue words will be like, unlike, similarly, on the other hand. Bring it back to COVID again. We will have a passage that will tell you it is like a flu, but also on the other hand, it spreads faster, it's undetected for a while, people spread it, and that makes it more dangerous. Cause and effect, our little icon for that is a seesaw. It explains the events, the causes, and then the results. Let's think of a subject like economics. In economics, because of COVID-19, world trade came to a stop, or it was reduced. What are the effects? People are suffering, certain commodities are not easily attainable. Newspapers, or not really newspapers, magazines had to close down. So that's a cause and effect. So we will have in the passage, because people didn't have money to spend on magazines, they closed down because they no longer had any advertisements. Consequently, or that is why we no longer have magazines on our shelves. That is a cause and effect type of text. And then you get your problem and solution. I love this icon. Look at it. All little dots coming together in a nice circle here, telling you that I had a problem, but now there's a solution. So this text will describe the problem and how it was solved. Clue words, because, since, this led to. Let's think of a little scenario. Because of the lockdown, people were kept at home. Since then, families grew closer, and they had to explore different ways of entertaining themselves. This led to a complete change in social behavior. It is important to note that a text might contain more than one of these elements or structures, describing or explaining or comparing or problem solution in one text. Let's see if you can remember the little icons. This one, the little dots coming together in a big circle, that one is the problem solving. This one, the 1, 2, 3, is the chronological one. The little blocks refer to a description. The seesaw refers to a cause and effect. And the circle here will contrast and explain similarities. Great. Now that we know what we must look for when we are reading, we're going to discuss how you should read text and what reading strategies you should use while you are reading the text. Do you know what this is? It's called an iceberg. Now, there was this ship that was built years ago, and people thought it was invincible. I'm sure you must have heard of it, the Titanic. And then, to everyone's surprise, on its maiden voyage, it actually sunk. And why? Because it met an iceberg. And this shows you what an iceberg is like. There's a little bit on top. Then you have your middle bit, and the bit that's just hidden below the surface, and then it goes right down. So the captain of the ship didn't realize how big the iceberg was beneath the surface. And this is the same with reading. You have your level 1, where everything is obvious and you understand what you are reading. Your level 2 is just hidden below the surface. And your level 3 is deeper. You must think about it. And then if you use your reading strategies, it will help you to unlock each level. So let's read. When you look at these levels, there are now certain strategies. Now, for the first level, level 1, I'm going to make use of predicting, visualizing, and making connections. What do we mean by that? Think about the words predicting. If you predict something, you're going to predict what the future is, what the outcome is. If you visualize, you're drawing a picture. If you're making connections, you compare, you understand, you draw comparisons. So when you predict, you will use information from graphics, the text, or experiences to anticipate what you're going to read. And it's something that happens automatically. So you will have questions like, what do I think will happen next? Or, have I read or seen or heard about this topic elsewhere? What words or images do I expect to see or hear in this text? what might happen next? Why do I think that? What helped me to make the prediction? Now, it's not as if you obviously going to make these or ask yourself these questions. It happens automatically as you are reading. Then you ask yourself these questions. While you are reading, what's going to happen next? Or what am I picturing while I'm reading this? Can I picture this? Have I heard about this somewhere else? Especially now that we're reading so much about COVID-19, you will all the time say, oh, but I have read this somewhere else. When you visualize, then you create a mental image. Look at little Snoopy here. He is creating a mental image of a fish. What type of visualizing questions and statements will you ask? What are the pictures that I created in my head as I read this text? Can I describe the picture or the image I created while I read? How did the pictures that I created help me to understand the text? And visualizing is especially important when you have to read literature, because you have to visualize the scene that the writer is drawing for you by his descriptive words. And that's when you will especially use visualizing, but even when you read for a comprehension test or for any subject. When you make connections, you make personal connections with something that happened to yourself, something that happened in the world, or something that you've read somewhere else. You will be asking automatic questions like, does this remind me of something else that I've read? Or I saw a program on television that presented things described this way. Oh yeah, I've seen a character like this that I read in another text. Or has something like this ever happened to me? Those will be the type of questions that you automatically ask while you are making your connections. Now there's a little picture of you will make your connections to things that happened to yourself, to things that happened in the world, and to things that you have read somewhere else. Now you are at level 2 of reading. At level 2, we're using the words monitoring, the strategy of monitoring, and summarizing. And this is a very important skill. Let's unpack this. When you monitor, you stop and you think about the text and you know what to do when the meaning is disrupted. Meaning is disrupted means you do not understand what you have read. Then you will ask yourself, what does this word mean? Remember, every word has a base, and you can break it up until you come to the main base of the word. And from there, you can maybe derive the meaning. Or if you see the word in context of the sentence, you will be able to figure out what the meaning of the word is. Another way to find meaning is to think if you know of another word that sounds the same, even in your own language. Sometimes languages copy from each other, and then that might remind you of another word and you might understand what you are reading. When you monitor, you also think, what have I learned? Does this make sense to me, what I have read? Or do I need to read again? And then when you do summarizing, you identify and accumulate. Identify and accumulate the most important ideas and restate them in your own words. That's very important. In your own words, you paraphrase it so that it makes sense to you. The typical questions that you will ask, what things will help me summarize this text? Must I make a list? Must I draw a mind map? You know what a mind map is? The little squiggle that looks like a spider leg, where you make your connections there. Or must I do note-taking? Or must I use annotations, in other words, compare things to make meaning? What is the main theme? You'll be asking, what are the main ideas and significant details from the reading? It's important that you do that because in every passage, even in a subject like history, economics, when they give you a passage to read, then you must be able to identify the details and the main ideas because it will depend on the type of question they ask you, but you must be able to ascertain, is this the main idea and are these the details supporting the main idea? Or you will ask, if I were to tell another person about the text I read, how would I do that? And practice that at home. We're reading so much on our phones now. Tell your brother, your siblings, your mom what you've just read. Summarize it in your own words. You'll see how easy it becomes. And then you apply that same skill when you have to read something and summarize it in your own words. And then we get to the level 3. In other words, the third time of reading. That's when you evaluate. Now let's unpack evaluate. When you evaluate, you stop. Pause means to stop. And you answer questions that clarify meaning and promote deeper understanding of the text. So typically in evaluation questions or statements, you will ask, whose point of view is this? How does this text make me feel? Why do I feel like that? Or, what does the writer of the text mean by what he wrote? And what in the text helped me to know what he wanted to say to me? Why did I understand it that way? So now that we've done all the reading strategies, you must have a thorough understanding of the text. Now, students often think when they write exams that they don't have time to read the passage more than once. But that's a fallacy. Remember, you have a 2.5 hour period to complete paper 1. Comprehension test counts 30 marks of the 80 marks. So you must divide your time between the questions, the 5 questions, so that you're able to apply enough time to each section. And if you manage to read the comprehension test at least twice, it will make you understand and respond to the questions much better. Now, after you've read the text 3 times, the next step is to answer the questions. Now, the questions in the exam paper follow the same structure as the iceberg. Your level 1, 40% of them, in other words, the easy ones, the ones that are on top, they are directly above the text. They're easy to do. So 40% of the paper you should be able to easily get because they're straightforward. They are there. You must just go and look for them. Then we have 40% that's just below the surface. They're just hidden there. 40% of the answers have to be inferred or deduced. Now, these are a bit more difficult, but there are skills on how to answer these questions as well, how to find the answers to these. And then 20% of the questions are here at the bottom at the level 3. They are the evaluation questions. So you can easily get 60% for your comprehension test because you can get the 40% that's on top. And you know what? It's so easy to get the 20% here at the bottom because there's no right or wrong answer here. As long as your answer is grounded in the text, if you refer back to the text, you will get your marks there. But I will unpack that later. So what type of questions are on top? It's literal. But now you must note that we say they are the ones down here. Down here. Then you get the 40% that are inference, that's just below the surface. They are hidden. And then your 20% questions, the evaluation and appreciation, those are the ones where you must use your head or your heart. In other words, you must think, you must give an opinion. Now, the level 1 questions, the ones that are down there, are questions like name or state the facts. See how easy it is? You just read through and you name it or you state the facts. Or identify or list or tell. or describe what you have read. Or you will be asked to recall something that you have read. You could be asked to summarize something, to group it together, to give similarities and differences, and to give an outline, to contrast it. See how easy it is. These type of questions are very easy. So that's 40% of the paper that you'll be able to respond to. Your inference questions, they are now the ones that are hidden, like the worm in the book. They are questions where you are asked to explain something. Here you will have to write more. You will have to write sentences where you compare things. What is the writer's intention with writing this or using this word? This is where you get your true and false questions. Now, true and false questions, lately, our examiners put them as a statement. They say, find proof from the passage why this statement is true or why the statement is false. So they tell you it is true or it is false. And then you must just read and explain to them in your own words why it is either true or false. And multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are those questions where you have the sentence and then you must say which one of the options match the multiple choice question best. And I will show you a few tricks on how to respond to multiple choice questions. Then your evaluation or appreciation questions. Remember, that's the one that takes 20% of the paper. Now see how easy these questions are. Do you think? Or comment critically. So if you have read your passage 3 times, like we suggest, then you will be able to respond to this because you will have an opinion of the passage that you have read. Do you agree with the viewpoint of the author? Discuss the writer's use of alliteration or certain words. Discuss the effectiveness of something. This is something that we often get in literature. Discuss the effectiveness of the figure of speech used in this line. And you must again take it back to the text. Discuss your response to this text that you've read. So with these questions, you can easily get your 20% mark, and I will also later on give you tips on how to respond to these questions. Just keep them in mind. Now, how to respond to these evaluation questions? A good tip is to have a pen or a pencil ready when you make notes. And then you make little notes. For example, a little sad face if you don't agree, or a happy face when you agree. You can have your lightning bolt when you think something is important, or you can underline new words that you don't understand. You can draw little arrows to indicate the relationship between ideas. Then when you have to respond to these difficult questions, because they are perceived to be difficult, because they ask you for your opinion, then you will have little notes where you can go back to, because these questions must be based on the text. The answers must be based on the text. So how should we answer comprehension questions? First of all, read through the questions. Don't just start at number 1 and start completing the questions. Read through all the questions first. And I know you think, no, there's no time, I'm in a hurry. No, you have to read through the questions. Otherwise, you might miss something. Take note of the mark allocation for each question. It's so important because if a question counts 1 mark, then you can only write a word or a sentence. But if it counts 2 marks, you know you must write 2 things or 2 sentences. Use full sentences when you respond to questions. Pay attention to the instruction in the question, and that's why we say encircle the instruction word. And that goes for all your subjects. You must know what the instruction word is. Are you asked to explain or describe or list or verify? Those words, we call them question words, are the important questions to assist you in answering the question or responding to the question correctly. So here we give you a few typical questions that you find in an exam paper. The instruction words. We'll ask you, refer to paragraph X or lines X to Y. That means you must read that paragraph or the lines again, because the answer will appear there. You will see in a passage that they have little lines. Every fifth line is numbered. So you will have a 5, and then a little bit down you'll have your 10. So it's easy to find the line. You don't have to start at number 1. You can just refer to the notes on the side. If you are asked, state 2 reasons, ensure that you give 2 reasons. If you just give 1 reason, you're only going to get 1 mark. If you are asked to use your own words, you may not lift the answer from the passage. If you do that, it's wrong. Then it's a quotation. So if you specifically ask that it must be your own words, don't fall into the trap to just take it from the passage because it looks easy. And to avoid quoting something, it's actually very easy. You just change the word order around, you change 1 or 2 words in the sentence, and then it's not considered a quotation any longer. So you must just make a change to the sentence, but make sure that your sentence still makes sense. If you're asked to explain, you must write an answer using full sentences. You cannot just write down 1 word. And what is the difference or similarity? Ensure that you compare 2 things. State, this is like this because that is like that. Or this is the difference because that is the difference. You get your multiple choice questions where you must choose the correct answer. Now there's an easy trick to this. Read each option, and decide which one is the most correct. Don't just guess. Read each option, then you say, yes, it sounds a bit if it could be correct. No, this one doesn't sound correct at all. Yes, this one sounds the best. It sounds the most correct in the context of the passage because, again, it will be grounded in the passage. Substantiate your answer and discuss. These will all be higher order questions that you will be guided here by the mark allocation. It will be an open-ended question. Open-ended questions are the ones where you can score marks easily because you ask for your opinion and your understanding of the passage. The same when you're asked to discuss your opinion and your understanding of the passage. So now, here's a tip for the 20% question. I hope you are all ears. We speak of the PO principle. P stands for state the point. E refers to provide an example. The second E, provide an explanation of the example. And L, link what you have said to the passage. Then you will get your full marks for this question. Easy, isn't it? Now, I've given you here an extract from a paper. It was last year's paper, the paper from 2019, just so that we can see how it really looks like when you're faced with a comprehension test. Let's read this. The first paragraph. We undertake creative activities such as drawing, painting, writing, acting or dancing because we enjoy them. We know that creativity is good for us and our creative passions make us happy. However, what do scientists have to say about the benefits of creativity? Some people pursue creative activities as a hobby and some do it for a living. However, no matter what road we have taken to release our imagination and need for free self-expression, it is clear that making things is part of being human. Okay. In the paper, question 1 said, refer to paragraph 1. State one benefit of being creative. That means you have to go back to paragraph 1. You must find one benefit. We see there creativity is good for us. It makes us happy. What was the correct answer? We know that creativity is good for us and it makes us happy. So you had to write, it's enjoyable, it makes us happy, it is good for us. Here you could have used it makes us happy because they didn't tell you to use your own words. They said state one benefit. So this is a question that is above the iceberg, the top part of the iceberg. Then the second question was referred to paragraph 2. Explain the difference between doing something as a hobby and doing something for a living. Now here the answer is hidden because you don't know. You have to read between the lines. The correct answer was, when creative activities are pursued as hobbies, they are done for enjoyment. When creative activities are pursued for a living, one earns a living or an income from them. There you have your 2 marks. Then there was a question, and this is more difficult. The previous question, this one, was just below the surface, but it was still easy. This one is a bit deeper. What does the writer mean by release our imagination? Now you must think, you must infer meaning from this. You must go back to the text. You have to explain both words in context of the text. So the correct answer was, it is to express or set free. You see, release, express or set free, imagination, our creative thoughts or ideas. And there you have your marks. Then the second part of a comprehension test is the visual part. In the visual part, you'll get a graph or a cartoon. Here we have examples. This is a typical graph where you have something. This is a graph on reporting bullying. How many people were bullied, in which grade, etc. And that side we have a cartoon. So remember, there's no connection between text A and text B. So you shouldn't go and try and find answers or responses to the questions posed on text B in text A. It's a completely separate section. What are the typical questions that we get in text B? Something like, what is happening in the visual? What is the relationship between A and B on the graph? Discuss whether text B as a whole conveys an important message. Okay, let's go back to our little graphs. If we say here, which type of bullying did we see the most incidences from? Then you'll see here definitely verbal and in 9th grade. So there could be a question on that where you're explaining just what you see on the graph. Here, if they ask you, what is the lady doing? You'll say she's driving a car. Why do you know that? She's wearing a seat belt and she's sitting in a car. What is she doing? She is looking at her cell phone. What is her son doing? He is playing with his remote motor car and he's also on his cell phone. So if we go back to the questions, discuss whether text B conveys an important message. If you think of the cartoon, the lady behind the wheel and the boy playing with his remote, then the question was, what message is conveyed by this cartoon? And it's easy. The message was, children pick up on bad habits from their parents, because the lady was looking at a cell phone, that's against the law, and the boy was also looking at the cell phone already while he was a child playing, creating the impression that as he grows up, he will also be doing the wrong thing. So that was a deeper question where you have to give your opinion of something. So now we have discussed text A and text B. I hope you will be able to use these strategies. Remember that you must first of all look at the text, different types of text. Is it a descriptive, a comparison? Is it a problem and solution? Is it a cause and effect? Or is it chronological? And then you read your passages 3 times, and every time to try and get to a more deeper understanding. In the beginning you read just to visualize and to predict, and then you start to summarize and make sense of it, and then lastly when you read you use evaluation skills to make an opinion or form an opinion of what you have read. Good luck. You can now take one of the old previous question papers that are available on the internet and that your teachers might have given you, and see if you can apply these skills to improve when you complete the comprehension test. Thank you.